Hello students, this is Rohit here. So I'll be taking your grade 6 chemistry. As you have seen last class, we have started with the chapter pure and mixed substances, and you have also discussed about these many things. Okay, so methods of separating mixtures, we have been continued with that. I'm just going with the last flow because it will just revise you up and it will also make you clear. Okay, so you have studied about methods to separate solid from solid mixtures. Okay, you have studied about methods to separate solid from solid mixtures. In that you have studied about the first, that is winnowing. So as you know, winnowing is the process in which the heavier grain gets separated from the husk. Okay, so the principle also remains the same because grain is heavier, it settles down at the center, and the husk being lighter, when the air passes by, settles at the other side. Okay, farmers are seen using this during the time of harvesting. Okay, so usually this technique in a lot of rural areas, if you have gone there, you can find this. The next process is hand picking. Okay, the same technique which your mother or any of the persons in your family uses. Okay, if they want to separate a little small of the stones or any of the substances from a smaller quantity of grains, they use this technique called as hand picking. A very important principle is that this can be done because the impurities may be of different size, shape, or color. Okay, so it may be different with the size, shape, or color. And in the smaller medium or smaller content or quantity, you can use this. Okay, now if you have 50 kilograms of grains and if you start picking that, it will take you for almost a week, right? So this is done in a home or in a smaller level. The next process is magnetic suppression. Okay, this is also a technique in which you can say that solid to solid separation, magnetic separation is very important because here the substances which are attracted to the magnet, they get separated. Usually the iron metals or the ferrous metals, these get separated from the heap. Okay, if you have gone to the recycling materials, all the waste which are there, they use this technique where the magnet just passes through the medium and all the iron particles or iron substances get attracted to that. Okay, this can be done in your home also. You can just take any of the iron substances and iron particles along with any of the plastic or paper. If you just pass through that, the iron particles get attracted. There is an attraction being seen. Okay, so students, magnetic separation in the larger scale also this can be used. Okay, in the larger scale they use this kind of a magnet called as electromagnet. Okay, which is magnetic when there is electricity being applied. Okay, when there is a flow of electricity, the magnet is very strong, and this separates a bigger substances like cycle or it may be vehicle or any of the iron heap which is bigger in size. Okay, so this technique can be used to separate iron articles or iron materials, magnetic separation. The next is sieving. Again, the homely technique, or you can say that in your homes usually we have been using this. So in the sieving, students, the principle is very simple. There is a porous material. The larger sized molecules or a larger size quantity of grains will settle up and all the smaller ones get down. Okay, example, maybe in your home you have seen this wheat flour. Okay, they take this wheat flour and they just pass through this sieving material and your mama starts doing that, right? So in that your impurities get separated. Main intention of all this separation technique, students, is that the undesired materials we have to separate. Sometimes we may not require that. That is the main important criteria for the separations. Okay, so this was about the sieving. And lastly we have sublimation. Students, sieving can also be used in a larger scale. In your bigger industries, to separate molecules or bigger content molecules, they can be separated. Okay, all this food industries, sieving is a very important technique for them. Next we have sublimation as a process. Sublimation, as you know that the process in which a solid changes directly into vapor. A solid changes directly into vapor without going to the liquid state. Okay, so here the state of matter is being skipped. One state is getting skipped. Okay, so I want to repeat that. A solid changes directly into vapor, or vapor changes directly into solid. Right? So these are the 5 techniques, that is winnowing, hand picking, magnetic separation, sieving, and sublimation. So we have seen about the sublimation, that is the process in which a solid changes directly into vapor, or a vapor may change directly into solid without going with the liquid state. Here the state, one of the state gets like you can say that it is missing here. Okay, so we have seen the process examples for that of ammonium chloride, and the mixture of salt. Ammonium chloride and mixture of salt. So in this you have seen that ammonium chloride is a volatile material. Volatile in the sense vaporizes very easily. Okay, and next is salt, which is a non-volatile material. So this is a one criteria for sublimation process. When you are using this technique, students, one of the material which you are using, one of the substance which you are using should be non-volatile, and one of the substance may be volatile. Okay, so examples for that we have ammonium chloride and a mixture of salt. Ammonium chloride being when there is heat being supplied to the mixture, ammonium chloride vaporizes and it settles at the corners of the funnel. You have seen this process. So if this is the funnel, the ammonium chlorides, they settle on the wall of the the funnel. Okay, so when it is cooled, you can see that this ammonium chloride gets separated. Okay, so this was about the process of sublimation. Okay, these are the 5 techniques, students. Remember, we are talking of separation of solid from solids. Okay. Okay, students, now we are going to study about methods to separate a liquid or a solid from a liquid mixtures. Okay, so what is that? I'm telling you is that methods to separate a liquid or a solid. Okay, you have to separate a liquid or a solid from liquid mixtures. How you are doing this? The techniques we are going to learn here. Whatever the techniques we have, we are going to learn here. The first technique which comes to our mind is this sedimentation process. Okay, sedimentation process is a process in which the heavier solids settle down in the water. Okay, so the heavier particles settle down at the bottom. Okay, and if you want to check that, I just have to give a demo of that. Very simple demonstrations I can show you. What I can do is that I have this liquid mixtures in which we have added a small amount of mud or a solid material, you can say. As you can see, solid materials are insoluble. Okay, when all of the liquid here, when the solid settles down, the liquid which remains here, can you see that liquid? Right? So that liquid is called as a supernatant liquid. Okay, now this supernatant liquid can be easily removed. Now you may ask me how, sir, because the solid has been there inside, how can you separate that very easily? Students, what happens is that the solids which are there, they settle down, and whatever the liquid is there, the lighter one, it floats. And this lighter particles or lighter liquid, you can just remove this simply. How? Just without disturbing the sediments, if you remove that, you get the supernatant liquid. Right? So you can see me, students, how I am adding that. I don't add it I'm not adding it very immediately. I'm just allowing to pass this supernatant liquid slowly through my spatula. Right? The supernatant liquid is just passing by. Can you see that? And whatever the solid is there, it is undisturbed. It just settles down there. Okay, so as you can see, a supernatant liquid. Okay, students, so now whatever the clear liquid which we removed, that process is called as decantation. What is that called as? Decantation. So it is a process in which a clear liquid is separated from the settled solids. Okay, the clear liquid is separated from the settled solids. That process is called as decantation. Okay, so let us write that. So what is sedimentation? The process in which heavier solids settled down, the process in which heavier solids settles down and the clear liquid floats. So this process is called as sedimentation. What is this called as? Sedimentation. Okay. Solids have been settled down at the bottom. That process is called as sedimentation. And whatever the solid which has been there inside, we call it as sediment. What do you call it as? Sediments. Yes. Now this is your sediment. You can see this, the soil particles or the sand particles. It is called as sediment. And whatever the liquid which was floating, it was called as, yes, supernatant liquid. Okay. So we have also discussed the definition there for decantation. Removal of clear liquid from the insoluble solid, removal of clear liquid from the insoluble solid without disturbing. Now this is very important. Without disturbing the sediment is called as decantation. Decantation. Right? So process in which a clear liquids get separated from the insoluble solid without disturbing the sediments. The process that is called as decantation. Right? Okay. Let's go with the next technique. That is loading or coagulation. One more thing, students. Sedimentation, this process is a very important process in the purification of drinking water. Very, very important step. In this, like you know that the water comes from various sources like rivers, ponds, and various other sources. And these water, which is a raw one, is allowed to undergo this process called as sedimentation. Okay, and also later the decantation is carried away. The next process which I am talking about, the loading or coagulation, is also a very important process. Okay, so the process in which an external agent is added to carry out the sedimentation process or to speed up the sedimentation process, that process or that technique is called as loading or coagulation. Okay, I'll write the definition, we'll discuss this. The process in which the process in which an external agent is added, to bring the process of sedimentation, to bring the process of sedimentation process of sedimentation is called loading. It's called as loading. Okay, students, I'll just repeat the definition. The process in which an external agent is added to bring the process of sedimentation. You know, like students, sedimentation, as you know that if it is done in a smaller quantity, it can be like can happen within 15 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour. It may depend. If the quantity is large, sedimentation process takes time, and you know that there is a lot of huge population around the world and they need water. So to carry out this sedimentation very quickly, the loading process is used. Okay, there is an external agent being added so that the sedimentation can happen quickly or in a faster manner. Okay, here agent, students, we add an agent called as alum. This is an agent which will increase the process of sedimentation. What alum does is that, students, it just hugs the impurity. It just hugs the impurity and it settles down at the bottom of the flask, it may be, or it may be any of the container. Okay, so alum hugs the impurity and it settles down, and whatever the water is there, it just floats and goes away with the process. Okay, so how it happens is that if I have, let's stop this, I'll just tell you how it is happening. If I have this muddy water, and if I add alum as an external agent, alum as an external agent, whatever is there is that impurities plus alum settle at the bottom. Okay, so as I said, alum, it just hugs the impurity and it's allowing this water to settle down at the lower space and your impurity is separated. Students, you may ask me, what is this alum, sir? Okay, alum is a kind of a, you can say that it's kind of a stone or it's kind of a chemical in which it is made up of a substance called as this potassium aluminum sulfate. Commonly it is called as potash alum or just alum. Okay, it's a kind of a stone. If you have gone to the barber shop, the barber uses this as a stone to clean our beards or any of they clean this so that whatever the, like, it just allows the solids to, like, you can say that, lower the pain, and it just acts as a cleaning agent. Okay, so white stone, you may have seen that transparent stone, that is nothing but your alum, and that is being added in the process of loading. Okay, so we have discussed about now the sedimentation and loading or coagulation. Okay, both the terms are same. You may get in the exam, what do you mean by coagulation or what is loading? Don't get confused, right? Okay, students, we have looked at the process. First is sedimentation and also the loading. One more thing, students, loading can be, yes, as I said, it can be done in a larger scale, right? In a larger scale, we can do this loading process. The next process we are talking about is the filtration. Okay, a very important technique, the common technique, right? It is being used since a longer time. Okay, what is the definition for that? The process in which an insoluble component is removed from the liquid mixture is known as filtration. See, two terms are there here. Insoluble component from the liquid mixture. Here, insoluble component is being removed. Insoluble component, it may be anything which is in a solid form, that can be removed by the process called as filtration. Okay. Now, it's a very simple technique, students. I'm going to show you an activity with that. I know that you have seen this activity quite a lot of time, but trust me, students, this is the technique which you are using for your, like, in your higher class also. Till now, the scientists are still using this technique because it's very simple, very accurate, and it takes little time also, right? Without much of the apparatus, this technique can be done, right? Let us start with that. Whatever the apparatus I have here, I'm going to show you. The first is that I have a mixture, liquid mixture. Here we have seen this mixture, liquid mixture. Here you can see some solids are being They are inside that. Okay. Now you may ask me, sir, there are solids, sir, you can do this process with the sedimentation or decantation. Yes, I can do that. But instead of sand, if you have any of the material other than that, which is floating in the water, right? That process can, like filtration process can be undertaken. Like you may have any of the mixture which is floating there. Okay. Now how to do is that, students, first I'll just tell you what are the apparatus here. A beaker, mixture of liquid mixture, spatula, filter paper, right? We have this funnel and stand, right? Tripod stand we can call it. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how to fold the paper. Now very simple technique. Just look at this. One, first step, fold it with the two sides. Second step, four sides, like just four, you have to get four layers here. Now, very interesting. Look at the three layers, leave that three layer and go with the last layer. Just fold it across like this, like how you make a boat. Similarly, do it across here and this is ready to use, right? Okay. Keep it across here. Now for this to, like it is coming up like this, just add a drop of water for that so that it sticks to this funnel. You can see that I'm adding a little amount of water so that, right? Now what I'm going to do, yeah, you can see this liquid is coming very easily, very quickly, right? Okay. So what we'll do is that, okay, so I'll take a beaker below this. Simple. Liquid mixture, I am pouring across this. Students, what is the phenomena here happening? Yes, there are small tiny pores inside the filter paper and these pores allow the water to settle down and the larger particles will be there as this filtrate. Okay, now I am going to tell you two terms here. Remember the two terms which I am going to say you. All the liquid has gone. Okay, yes. Okay. The first term I am going to tell you is that now whatever the liquid we separated from the liquid mixture, this is called as filtrate. What it is called as? Filtrate. Okay, what is this called as? Filtrate. Now whatever the solid, whatever the solid is, as you can see here, the solid is settled across this filter paper. Now this solid is called as a residue. What is that called as? Residue. Okay, two terms I am associating here. One is filtrate, the other one being residue. What is filtrate? It is just the liquid from the liquid mixture which got separated. Okay, right? Filtrate and residue. Filtrate is something which the water, the insoluble, you can say that the liquid mixture, whatever we separated, the liquid which we obtained, we call it as filtrate. Okay, and whatever the solid particles settled on the filter paper, as you can see here, it is called as a residue. What is that called as? Residue. Now, students, this technique can be used like if I have n number of mixtures. Now I'll take a beaker and there is n number of mixtures. There is sand, there is stone, and all the other mixtures are there. All of this gets separated, and liquid is obtained. Clear liquid is obtained. Okay. So what is that clear liquid called as? Yes, filtrate. And what is this called as? Which is there on the filter paper? Yes, residue. Right? Two terms associated. These terms are very like it is going to help you in a very broader manner. It is of very useful for you in your higher classes. Okay, students, we have seen the process of filtration now. We also understood the terms filtrate and residue. The next process which I am going to talk about is called as flotation. Okay, flotation. If you split this terms, float. Can you see that? There is something called as float. Now you may understand what it is. Yes, float, like the lighter particles of solids, they float on the water, and if it is floating, you can just remove that very easily, right? So flotation, just write the process here. It is the process by which we can remove insoluble lighter liquids, insoluble lighter solids, I am sorry, it's insoluble lighter solids from the liquid solid mixture, from the liquid solid mixture. So examples we have for this: sawdust and water. Now the students, what is the sawdust and water, sir? It's very simple, just the powder form of wood, right? What happens, students, this wood powder and all, if something is like, if it is useful for you, or if it is useful for you, we just put this sawdust and water. The sawdust floats on the water, right? The woody surface or woody powder floats on the water, and that can be separated very easily. That by this process called as flotation. Here you are allowing the particles, sawdust particles, to float, right? So I'll repeat that. It is the process by which we can remove insoluble, very important, insoluble lighter solids from liquid solid mixture. Okay, so this process is used to separate lighter particles, usually the solid which is very light. Okay, and this technique can be used. Okay, students, the next process we are going to discuss about is centrifugation. Centrifugation process, students, like what happens in this process is that there is like lighter particles, they get separated. Lighter particles, they get separated when it is mixed mixed in a closed container at a very high speed. Okay, mixed in a smaller, like if you have like there is something called a centrifuge, students. What this does is that you have to just take a test tube and add the mixture, which is like, if you have the you can say that mixture which is floating. If you just keep it in that instrument, quickly it turns around, like you can say that it spins very quickly, almost like 300 to 200 to 300 rotations per minute, right? At a very high speed, what happens is that the lighter particles, they float and the heavier will settle down. Okay, no need to worry, students, because this same concept you are learning in your next 7th standard. Okay, so examples for this, it's a very common example still being used: churning of milk to separate cream. Okay, like milk is just a mixture of various things, and cream gets separated by this technique called as centrifugation. right? At a very high speed, the milk is rotated and the lighter milk, sorry, the heavier milk gets settles down and the cream which just floats, right? So this is about centrifugation. The next important technique which I am going to talk about is the evaporation. Now what is evaporation? You know this technique. The process in which solid is solid changes to liquid by heating, right? So we'll just write that definition here. The process in which a liquid changes into vapor state by gentle heating. Liquid changes into vapor state on gentle heating. Is known as evaporation. Students, I'll just repeat it. The process in which a liquid changes into vapor state. A liquid changes into vapor state on gentle heating. On a very gentle heating, this process is called as evaporation. What is that called as? Evaporation. Remember, liquid changes to vapor on gentle heating. You are not supplying a huge amount of heat here. Okay. If you are just supplying a little amount of heat, you may see that in the summer season, water gets evaporated because the sunlight, like there is quite of high temperature and the water gets evaporated, right? So this process is used to separate a soluble solid from liquid. Okay, examples we can have here is separation of salt from liquid. Okay, students, will just wind up the class today. Now, homework, students. Your homework is very simple. Write all the methods to separate a solid from solid mixtures with examples. Okay, so you have to remember is that the principle you have to remember that it's very important, and the examples. In the exam, how they'll ask is that they'll just give you some of the mixtures and they tell you which technique is used to separate. Okay, so if you are thorough with this, yes, you can be very good with this techniques, right?